Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mayor Reed Gussiero of the great city of Trenton, and I want to thank the governor for coming here and choosing this place, which hopes to be open in a month as the Rise Center, which will be a community and a safe haven for kids. We've had a number of community functions here, and we're really honored that you chose this place to come and visit and to sign 3150 into law. I do have the honor of introducing the bill's sponsor, Senator Troy Singleton, Assemblyman Bill Spearman, our great Senator Shirley Turner is here, Assemblyman Anthony Varelli is here, our County Executive Brian Hughes, our Acting Attorney General Lindsay Rutolio, and our Police Director Steve Wilson, our Colonel Callahan from the New Jersey State Police, Recreation Director Maria Richardson, and Council Vice President Crystal Feliciano, our North Ward Councilwoman Jen Williams, Reverend Taylor, and I think I covered everyone. But welcome to Trenton and the Rise Center. This is necessary to help prevent the spread of violence. And S3150 will do so much to help keep guns out of the city of Trenton. We're a stone's throw from Pennsylvania, where many guns come in here, but the purpose of the bill is to hold persons liable who then pass off weapons to others and then commit crimes, particularly in this city and other urban areas across the country. So I want to welcome our great esteemed governor, who's a leader on sensible gun legislation and an advocate of keeping our streets safe. He needs no introduction, but we're really ecstatic that the governor has chosen the city of Trenton for this important legislation, because this is the urban area which will do a lot of good to help prevent further spread of gun violence. So thank you, Governor, and I want to welcome you up to the podium.
Appreciate it. Reed, thank you. It's always good to be in Trenton. My office is right down the block, and enjoy driving through town on this beautiful summer day. So Reed, thank you for your generous words and for your dedicated leadership here in the capital city, and to members of council who are both with us and not here today. Take our hat off to you. Maria, where are you? You're over here in the corner beside the county executive. I want to thank you for allowing us to hold this event here today. You are the director of this great community's Recreation, Natural Resources, and Culture Department. And this is newly redesigned. I'm told there's a ribbon cutting pending in the fall, is that right? I was told hopefully by November? October 2nd, which is by November. So you beat the deadline. I hope it, by the way, Maria, I hope it looks this good after the kids have been in here and playing ping pong and football and all other things, and I wish you nothing but the very best. And you will also, I guess, host, as Reed said, the RISE program here, which is a game changer in this community. And it is a community partnership that is dedicated to providing a safe, enriching environment for all of Trenton's kids. So we wish you nothing but the very best. And that spirit of partnership on behalf of the city's youth is a vital reminder of our chief responsibility as leaders and as lawmakers. We are elected above all to protect our children and families. And today, New Jersey, as Reed alluded to, will take a historic step to protect our children and families from gun violence. And in doing so, we will become the first state in the United States of America to enact a new kind of gun safety law, one that will prevent the illegal flow of firearms into communities just like Trenton. So I want to echo Reed's acknowledgments of some of the leaders with us today. In particular, I want to begin by acknowledging the sponsors, some of whom are here and some of whom are not, but most importantly, the guy in front of me, Senator Troy Singleton. We would not be here without him, and we'll hear from him in a few moments. In absentia, Assemblywoman Linda Carter, Senator Linda Greenstein, Assemblyman Bishop Reginald Atkins, Assemblyman Sterling Stanley, all of whom are sponsors. I also want to thank Bill Spearman, all the way in. Where are you, Bill? All the way in from Camden. Bless your heart for coming up. Senator Shirley Turner, in whose district we sit. Anthony Varelli, one of the co-sponsors, is with us as well, and I want to tell you how great it is to be with you. You don't get to hear this often. Reed used this phrase. I will use it, which is we have the acting Attorney General, Lindsay Rotolo, with us today. More on that in a moment. Again, I want to acknowledge the County Executive, Brian Hughes, great friend and a great leader for many, many years here. A great colleague, Superintendent of the State Police, Colonel Pat Callahan. He was mentioned, Pastor John Taylor of Friendship Baptist, and the lead chaplain of the State Police. And I don't think, Pastor, we're here without you today. And I mean that literally as the case. I want to give a shout out as well to my dear friend of the State Police chaplain, Pastor Steffi Bartley's in the house. Honored to have you with us all the way downtown into Trenton. And I also want to acknowledge again, Police Department Director Steve Wilson, who we will hear from as well, and also your fellow members of law enforcement who are with us today. God bless you all, and please stay safe. So I mentioned Lindsay's acting. I also want to mention Attorney General Matt Platkin, as well as his predecessor, Acting Attorney General Andrew Bruck. They each deserve a lot of credit here. Both of them have championed this initiative along with Lindsay, our Chief Counsel Paramel Garg, I think, over the past several years. And though Matt is on dad duty, I want to thank him and Andrew in absentia for their tireless commitment to strengthening our gun safety laws. I also want to acknowledge Bill Castor, who is with us. I don't think we would be anywhere near where we are as a gun safety state without Bill's advice, counsel, and leadership. So thank you, Bill. So this is not a new notion for us. Promoting gun safety has been a priority for our administration literally since day one. And over the past now coming up to 6 years in collaboration with our partners in the legislature, New Jersey has led the nation in gun violence prevention. Since 2018, we have enacted more than a dozen common sense gun safety laws. Some of these have strengthened background checks or expanded restrictions on gun ownership. Others have banned especially dangerous firearms like .50 caliber weapons that can take down literally a helicopter, or ghost guns which can be built at home. I just spoke to one of the Valor Award winners today, Detective Sergeant from Carteret. He got his award because he apprehended a domestic violence perpetrator, and on this guy, as he was reaching into his belt to shoot against the Valor Award winner, he had a ghost gun from out of state in his pocket. But altogether, these new laws have made our community safer, and they've helped parents, myself included, I might add, sleep easier at night. Of course, going up against the gun lobby is no small task. The industry keeps filing bogus lawsuits against our state's gun safety laws with the hopes that some court will strike them down. Well, I would just say if they want to fight, we will give them one. And just last week, we scored a huge win when the federal Third Circuit rejected the gun lobby's challenge to our so-called public nuisance law that we signed last year. That law authorized the Attorney General to go after gun manufacturers for the dangerous marketing and sale of firearms. And thanks to the Third Circuit's ruling, that important law is back on the books. And I want to give again Bill a big shout out for being there at the creation of that law. New Jersey is long ranked among the states with the nation's lowest rates of gun violence. And we have maintained that proud reputation by putting public safety and the needs of our families first. But despite the progress that we have made here in the Garden State, and we have made progress, the reality is gun violence is a nationwide challenge. And as long as the majority in the House of Representatives refuses to take action, we here in New Jersey cannot slow down. And frankly, we don't have a choice, because today, according to the CDC, gunfire is the #1 cause of death for America's children. #1. We are the only large, wealthy nation in the world where our kids are more likely to die from guns than from cancer or in car accidents. And it goes without saying that every single precious child lost to gun violence is one too many. And we can never allow our precious children to become mere statistics. Within each one of them, there were hopes, dreams, and futures full of possibilities. And one of those children, known well to this community, was Sequoia Bacon Jones. Sequoia was a 9-year-old girl who lived right here in Trenton. She was bright, she brought joy to everybody she met, and she had her whole life ahead of her. But one evening last March, that all changed. That night, Sequoia, her brother, and their friends were playing in the courtyard of the Kingsbury Square Apartments, which is a little bit more than a mile southwest of here, in fact, right near the Attorney General's office. And while Sequoia and her friends were playing in the courtyard, an unrelated fight broke out and shots were fired. Sequoia was struck by a stray bullet, and tragically she passed away later that evening. The gun that killed Sequoia Bacon Jones was fired by a 19-year-old who was in possession of that weapon illegally. And let's remember that and Pat would want me to say this, that over 80%, well over 80% of the weapons or crime guns that have been illegally trafficked into our state have come from another state. That is because New Jersey's gun laws, which are among the strongest, as we know, in the entire country, often mean nothing to someone living in a state like Georgia or South Carolina, to pick two. A person in one of those states can buy a small arsenal of guns at a pawn shop, drive up the iron highway, Route I-95, and then resell those weapons illegally on the streets of Trenton or Bill and Camden or in some other communities in our state. And then they could just dust off their hands, drive back home to Georgia or wherever, and not worry for a second about being held legally accountable for the shootings they leave here in their wake. Say that one of those guns is used to commit a murder or seriously injure someone. Under our existing laws, for the next 10 minutes or so, the gun trafficker who sold it will not be liable for the crime. Well, that changes in a few moments. I will sign the Real Accountability for Consequences of Unlawful Trafficking of Firearms Act into law. I did not come up with the name, by the way. And while that name may be a mouthful, the message it will send to gun traffickers is loud and clear. If you illegally sell guns, you can personally face criminal penalties for violent crimes committed using those guns. Those same criminal penalties can even apply to out-of-state gun dealers. So if a gun dealer, for instance, in South Carolina sells weapons to a gun trafficker, knowing that they will bring them into New Jersey, then that dealer can face criminal penalties for violent crimes committed with those guns. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, at least up to 20 years imprisonment. And I'm proud to say that this legislation, which passed, I might add, with unanimous bipartisan support, is the first, amen, and Troy, I thank you again for leading the charge, is the first anti-gun trafficking law of its kind in the entire country. That being said, it is also important to note that this law, in some respects, is not entirely new. It is modeled after a number of long-standing laws designed to prevent a different kind of illicit trafficking, and that is drug trafficking. Here in New Jersey, for instance, we've had a law in the books for decades that holds drug traffickers criminally liable for overdose deaths that result from the use of the drugs they sell. So with the legislation I'm signing in a few moments, we're applying the exact same underlying logic to address a new public health crisis, namely gun violence. And with this law, our goal is to crush the iron pipeline of illegal firearms, flooding communities just like this one. Let me be also clear that this law will have exactly no impact whatsoever on law-abiding gun sellers and gun owners. It will only target individuals who disrespect the Second Amendment by illegally trafficking guns. We all know that there is no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to ending the scourge of gun violence. Holding gun traffickers accountable, as we are today, is a vitally important step in this effort. But just as important, and Reed alluded to this, as did I up front, we need to support long-term solutions that will break the cycle of violence. That means investing in communities like Trenton from the ground up. It means increasing funding for resources that support the growth and healthy development of every precious child in New Jersey. In that spirit, last week, as Lindsay knows, Matt and I announced a new $15 million investment in community-based violence intervention programs throughout New Jersey. It will support mentoring programs, trauma support services, job training, and a lot more. In other words, the funding will support programs like Trenton's very own RISE program. So I want to, shamelessly fishing for applause. So I want to thank again all of you for creating a safe place for children to come together, to learn, to grow, for creating a place that where even they play a few too many hours perhaps of video games, but that they're being safe and sound in a setting like this. And I mean it when I say this. This is a bargain between all of us. We're locking hands today. We need you all to do your part, and I give you my word that we in our administration, alongside our great legislative leaders, will keep doing ours. So with that, again, thank you, Mayor and members of council, and to the county executive and all the officials here from Trenton and Mercer County for hosting us so graciously today. With that, I want to hand things off to one of New Jersey's great advocates for gun safety, the acting Attorney General of the great state of New Jersey, Lindsay Rotella. Welcome. I love saying that.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you very much, Governor Murphy. It is truly an honor to be here today on behalf of General Platkin to witness your signing of this vital tool in our effort to combat gun violence. But for his daughter's recent arrival, the AG would be here himself today. But on his behalf, please let me thank Senator Singleton and the sponsors of this bill for introducing this measure. The many community and faith leaders, especially Pastor Taylor for his instrumental work on the ground, for supporting it, the legislature for passing it, and especially you, Governor Murphy, for signing it into law today. Since General Platkin took office, our department and the greater New Jersey law enforcement community have received unwavering support from Governor Murphy. Thank you for affording us every imaginable tool sought to drive down gun violence in our state. This law is no exception. It will deter violence. It will give law enforcement the ability to hold accountable those who pocket a quick profit or hand off a gun to a teenager with no concern for the bloodshed that follows, and it will save lives. General Platkin and I knew when we assumed our respective roles that gun violence would be a part of our everyday lives. We knew that in our work, we would visit the bedside of colleagues shot in the line of duty. We would attempt to comfort grief-stricken families of people, often young people, violently killed in shootings. We would have to bear witness to the final moments of strangers' lives and see firsthand the destruction something as small as a bullet can cause to the human body. We knew we would see senseless and tragic acts of violence that we would not be able to unsee and that we would carry with us always. We accepted that in our profession, gun violence would be a part of our reality, but we refuse to accept it should be a part of yours. We will never accept that gun violence should be an everyday part or a part of the reality in the lives of New Jersey's residents. And so we come to work each and every day, committed to doing everything in our power, using every resource in our office, leveraging every partnership we have in the community with violence interrupters, with law enforcement, to prevent and reduce gun violence in our communities. This law will unquestionably help us carry out that mission. This law, as the governor said, is the first of its kind in its nation. As such, Attorney General Platkin will be issuing a directive later today that will provide guidance to law enforcement across New Jersey, ensuring the uniform and effective charging of this new crime. Under General Platkin's leadership, we look forward to working with our county prosecutors, Director Ferketic and our Division of Criminal Justice, our state chiefs, directors, and officers, and especially Colonel Callahan and the state police to investigate and prosecute violations of this law. It is also no secret that many of these guns used to commit violent crimes in our state came from outside of our state. So we are grateful to our neighboring states' law enforcement partners, as well as our federal partners, most especially the ATF, who under former Newark Field Office SAC Matthews and current SAC Brian Miller have eagerly embraced the opportunity to collaborate with us in enforcing this new law. So I thank you once again on behalf of General Platkin, Governor Murphy, and members of the legislature for uniting behind common sense gun laws and giving us the help that we need in our work to keep New Jersey safe. Thank you so much.
Well done, Lindsay. And Lindsay, for those of you who don't know her background, not only is she the first assistant and today as acting attorney general, but was, as Pastor Steffi knows, prosecutor in Union County before that. So she has been at the front lines of these efforts for a long time. Thank you for your leadership. You don't get a bill for me to sign without great leadership in the legislature. And representing his fellow legislators both here and who are not able to make it today, please help me give a big shout out to a great leader, Senator Troy Singleton.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor and privilege to be here today as we sign this incredibly important piece of legislation. As one of the prime sponsors of this bill, this bill isn't new to me. This question of eradicating illegal guns is not new to me. In 2013, I was proud to have authored our Anti-Gun Trafficking Act of 2013, which we believe was targeting the real issue here is our illegal guns that come in our state. And while today we're going to talk about consequences for bad actors, there's also consequences for families that are left behind by the scourge of gun violence. I know many members of law enforcement and actually many of my legislative colleagues have sat with families who've been touched by gun violence and see the pain of those families as they try and just understand the why. I was joking with Lindsay and my daughter's godfather, Bill Kastner, earlier about turning 50 this year. And while it's a momentous occasion, I'm incredibly thrilled to do it. It always is bittersweet to me. It's something I don't get a chance to talk about often. My first cousin, Sean Alexander, and I grew up in Philadelphia together in a section of Germantown, which is no different than Trenton and Camden and Patterson and Newark. And we share the same birthday. Unfortunately, I've had 27 of those without my cousin because my cousin was killed in a car sitting by someone with an illegal gun. And the challenge and the issue when you think about that, when you think about the memories of lives that are lost and you sit back and as a legislator, our job is to try and create public policy. When General Platkin and I sat in my office and we talked about this bill, he's aware of that story. And he and I talked about why we do the things that we do. And as a legislator, it's our job to sort of craft public policy. And as administrators and law enforcement, it's your job to help effectuate those laws. And we left that meeting thinking that if we could do something, anything, to continue to let gun traffickers know that our state is not a safe haven for your heinous acts. And there are consequences when you tear apart families for chasing a gold penny. For us, that's what this bill is about. It's about standing up and making sure that individuals who think they can traverse illegal guns through our state will be caught and will be punished to the fullest extent of this law. That is what our goal has been every time we stand before you, every time I've raised my right hand to this Constitution to protect the citizenry of this state, much like the governor and all my legislative and law enforcement colleagues. It comes in a lot of different forms, but today that form is holding bad actors accountable for doing bad things, and they think they can get away. So I'm proud to once again stand with the governor. He and I have done a few of these together, where we've signed laws to try and make a difference in people's lives, whether it's been prescription drugs or environmental justice or holding bad actors accountable. I've never questioned his heart and his merit about what he wanted to accomplish when we did it. It starts out with a single principle: how can we make it better for the next generation and those among us each and every day? How do we make our community safer and protect our neighbors? Today, with his penmanship on that piece of paper, we will take a step in doing that. So, Governor, thank you as always for allowing me to be a part of this occasion. Thank you to all of my legislative colleagues, and I will end on this note. The governor said it, but I want to punctuate it. There are few things in our world today that have brought a lot of bipartisanship together. Washington, D.C. is a little bit of a challenge, and sometimes in Trenton it's a little bit of a challenge. But this issue, there was not one no vote in us moving this forward. So there are still things that we can come together when we decide to put our partisanship aside, when we decide to put our ideology aside, and really are committed to saving people's lives. That's what we'll do here today. So thank you.
We lost our screen up here. I'm not sure that's, we're probably not paying our bills. Troy, thank you, man, and God bless your cousin. I've heard you tell that story before, but it doesn't get any easier. I know most importantly for you. So, and we have stood together on some pretty important game changers, and I think this is one of them. I think this, of all the gun safety bills that we've signed, this has the biggest reach. This allows us to get outside of our borders. And in the absence of federal gun safety legislation, beyond what we had, there was a modest move a couple of summers ago, and it was modest, but we're thankful for that. This is the one that I think has the biggest reach, so thank you for leading the charge. A couple more important folks to hear from. Next up to bat is Trenton's own, the police director of the exceptional Trenton Police Department. Please help me welcome Trenton's own Steve Wilson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Governor, Mayor, thank you for signing this into legislation. Thank you for making me the police director of the Trenton Police Department. This law sends a clear message to those who would participate and or profit from illegal trafficking of guns. They can now be held accountable for the injuries and death that they cause by gun violence. Thank you to all of my law enforcement partners and the legislation that brought this forward. You did your job. So the folks that I brought here with me today is the Mercer County Shooting Response Team. And they're the ones that are going to do this job with the boots on the ground. And they're headed up by Detective Lieutenant Lisette Rios. And the rest of the team is back there, and as well as Detective Lieutenant Brian Jones. It is not enough. Stand up, guys. You deserve it. Their clearance rates for shooting hits and non-hits are 45% and 50% respectively. And those, I believe, are higher than the national average. But it's not enough. They can now take their investigations a step further and find out, not just arrest the persons that are doing these crimes, but now find out where they got that gun and then get that person too. That's how important this legislation is. To stop it before it starts, because that's the true crime prevention that we all hope to enjoy. I'd also like to thank my partners in law enforcement that provide the resources for the shooting response team, starting with Colonel Callahan. We have 2 troopers there. Mercer County Prosecutor Angela Onifree and Mercer County Sheriff Jack Kemmler also send manpower to our shooting response team. And this is how we do things and get and accomplish and lower our crime rates and our gun violence in the city, by doing it together. We can do it no other way. I'm glad to be a part of that. I want to just keep this short, but I wanted to introduce to you those folks that this legislation will impact, because that is another tool in their toolbox to combat gun violence in our cities in New Jersey. And I appreciate it very much, again, all you legislators who have put this together. You're giving us a means to stop the violence. Thank you.
I want to thank the director, members of the shooting response team, and as I mentioned earlier, all members of law enforcement with us and beyond. And we had the great pleasure, I forget how long ago that was, Pat. I know the state police does an enormous amount here in Trenton. We toured the response team, and it's really remarkable, the technology and manpower, outstanding leaders that you put in place there. And thank, again, the colonel for his support, the prosecutor, the sheriff as well. Last but not least, I mentioned earlier, I don't think we'd be here today without him. He's not only a chaplain for the state police, he's a dear friend. He's a great faith leader, and again, he's a game changer in this community and beyond. Please help me welcome my friend, Pastor John Taylor, who I didn't recognize without his hat.
Good afternoon once again. It's very important to do the various things that we're doing on today, and it's just a few things, as Troy has said earlier, that all of us can work on as activists, community leaders, government, faith-based leaders, all of us together. Because when you have to stand before a family and a child is gone, a son, a daughter, a grandmother, a grandfather, because of senseless violence from a gun. And then with me, I have to stand on the other side because it's both families that are distraught and torn up. The person that pulled the trigger's family is torn apart, and the person that bullet hit is torn apart. And as a chaplain, as a minister, clergy, you have to minister to both. But the senselessness that people can traffic guns, dump them into communities that have no manufacturing complex to manufacture those guns, and then ride back out of town, and nothing is done about it. Thank God today is a game changer. Because once these laws are signed and we all work together collectively to identify those individuals, we can stop the stream. You can't stop everything at one time. It was a long time getting here. But we can at least use the tool in the toolbox to help get it done. So thank everyone, all of us collectively that's here, because our community has been waiting for a long time, asking us what are we doing about this trafficking of the guns and drugs and various things that the governor talked about. So we're moving forward to do it. Anybody can complain, but are you willing to be a game changer? Let's get in and make our communities better. God bless you.
Pastor, thank you for your words and for all that you do, and all the faith leaders. I mentioned Pastor Bartley as well, and all of them both here in Trenton and beyond. I mentioned I think this law has the biggest reach, Bill. I also think the public nuisance law, which the Third Circuit upheld, has an enormous reach. And that's going to be, I think you put these two side by side on top of what we've already done, Troy. I think we're in a position of strength that we haven't been in a long time. So with that, let's get this sucker signed. Thank you all. As I've said before, many of you, I cannot see a thing, so this is the money shot that I want to sign this thing. We good? Okay. Okay, so this is Senate Bill 3150. The synopsis is it establishes strict liability criminal penalties for firearm trafficking that result in injury or death. sponsored by the aforementioned Senator Troy Singleton and his colleague in the Senate, Leonard Greenstein, and then in the Assembly, Linda Carter, Bishop Reginald Atkins, and Sterling Stanley. But on the list as well, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Anthony Borelli, who is with us today. And again, this is a game changer. Among others, I might add, including Verlina Reynolds Jackson, also from Trenton Zone, who could not be with us today. So first up, the mayor of the capital city, Mayor Reed Gociora. Reed, congratulations. I don't say this often, as I mentioned earlier, the acting attorney general, Lindsay Rotolo. Lindsay, where are you? Great to see you. Thank you for your leadership. I don't know where we'd be without him. Senator Troy Singleton. Troy? Your colleague, Trenton Zone Senator Shirley Turner. All the way in from Camden, Assemblyman Bill Spearman. Bill, where are you, bud? He represents this district as well, Assemblyman and a co-sponsor, Anthony Borelli. Maria Richardson, thank you so much for hosting us today. Where are you? Well done. Outstanding leader for decades, dear friend, County Executive Brian Hughes. Brian? You need two. Love you, man. God bless you. We heard from him. He's a great leader, dear friend. Please get it up for Pastor John Taylor. Troy is directing traffic back here. We heard from him again, outstanding leader of a lot of members of law enforcement, including the shooting response team are with us today. Director Steve Wilson. Steve. I don't know where I would be without him, whether it's preventing gun violence or dealing with a pandemic or bad weather or everything in between. Let's hear it for the superintendent of the state police, Colonel Pat Callahan. Troy gets the assist because he is directing me. He's not on the list, but I meant this sincerely. He was there at the creation of this bill and so many others, and he's advised me for years on gun safety. Bill Castor. Bill, come on down. So I'm happy to say, effective immediately, this is the law of the land. Get the money shot here. Just said to Troy, this is a big one. I won't quote Joe Biden when they signed the Affordable Care Act. He turned to President Obama and he said it was a big something deal. I won't say that. Particularly in the presence of clergy. God bless you all and thank you.